tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They're hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit. There's a big appeal that's hit him on the pad. He's out. Lions gone. New South Wales are 9 down onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car. Oh, I think it's hit a car. What a way to bring up your 50.
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I am Menners. We didn't do a full show last week. It was snowed under after the Sri Lankan series. But joining me to go through all the cricket news is Sharbul Khoury, founder of CricBlog. Obviously been on the show many times. Sharbul, how are you?
I'm well, Menners. Thanks for having me back. I just love that intro. I can never get enough of it.
Oh, great. It fires the gets up. I don't think the Pommy listeners love it too much, but, you know.
No, I don't think so.
All right, so we are going to go through all the cricket news, a little bit of domestic news, obviously going to talk about the one-day series against Sri Lanka, and then the Champions Trophy is beginning tonight as we record this, actually.
Yep.
So we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon, Sydney time. The Champions Trophy is beginning tonight. So we'll do a little bit of a preview for that, maybe give you our predictions of who will get out of the group stage. And we'll wrap it all up with Can't Let It Go. Sharbul, let's start with the big news really out of the Sri Lankan Test series was Matt Kuhneman's action was reported by the umpires, and he's now going to undergo testing in the Queensland Centre of Excellence, and he will have to get tested and see if he doesn't bend above the 15 degrees. So, Sharbul, I have heard whispers about his action in the past. If I'm being honest, some people in the press box have floated doubts about it. I personally think he's okay. I think he's okay. I don't think it actually goes over the 15 degrees, but it's so hard to tell from the naked eye. And the problem is it's also not every ball that a bowler does it. It's just when they're trying to vary their pace or maybe put a bit of extra turn in it. What do you think of his bowling action?
I think you and I might have an argument. I was saying it in the group chat to my cousins, my friends, my brother, from 2 years ago that I thought, this looks a bit iffy because it's not actually in the release that's the problem. It's the load up. So you think about a bowling action, just picture a windmill, goes around straight. His arm actually bends so the arm doesn't actually go fully around in his action, and then there's a bend there, and then he releases it okay. So his release looks fine. It's the build up and it's the load up before that I've had a problem with, and I thought he could be reported one day, and I'm just disappointed for him that he was reported after such a great series for him personally. I don't like the fact that it's come after, performing well on the international stage. There should be a better process behind it, I think, personally. But I'm not entirely surprised that he has been reported, particularly when you look at the quicker ball that he bowls. It just seems a bit off, but I hope that, he goes well with the testing and he's okay. But to my naked eye, I've been calling it out for a little while. I thought there was a bit of a problem there in the load up, but we'll see what comes of it. So
I've got a couple of points on that. So firstly, look, after what happened with Murali Dhuran when he came to Australia, there was no doubt the Sri Lankans were going to be vigilant on this. And I would say they have been waiting for a square up for about 25 years. So they've got the square up here. Obviously, it wasn't the terrible suffering Murali had to undergo by being called in a major test match, but still, they weren't going to let this go after what we did to him. But I agree with you. Things need to be handled better at domestic level, so actions don't get to the international level and then they get reported. And, we've seen it with Chris Green, who plays for the Sydney Thunder. He had to undergo some testing. So I think they've just got to do a better job at domestic level.
I agree, 100%. Shouldn't let it get to that point. Just not great for the player, and just the process itself needs some thinking. Because when you get to the international level and he's played for so long, and then you report it, seems a bit strange. So I agree fully with that.
Yeah, so I think the process now is he will be tested in the Queensland Centre of Excellence, and then they will obviously make a report and findings on that. If there is an issue, then he will have to go through remedial work on his action before he's allowed to bowl again. He will obviously be tested again, and then he will be allowed to bowl again. We've seen bowlers do this.
Yeah.
And as you point out, it's not every ball. It's just certain balls where they may try to vary the pace. So, big concerns, I think, for Kuhnemann. This would be a very difficult period for him. He's played so much professional cricket, and then all of a sudden for this to happen, I think it's a tough time for him. And as I said before, domestic cricket just needs to do better. If there are doubts about an action, we need to get it tested, and we sort of need to take the stigma out of the testing as well. It's not saying you're a cheat, because it's easy to sort of go outside that 50 degrees, 15 degrees. 50 degrees, I think we'd notice. 15 degrees. It's easy to just go a bit above that, and maybe you don't realise it. So anyway, that's Matt Kuhnemann. We'll keep you updated on that. Since I recorded the last show, Australia played a very forgettable one-day series versus Sri Lanka. We lost both the games. In the first game, Sri Lanka were all out for 214, and then Australia were bowled out for 165. Jake Fraser McGurk made only 2. In the second ODI, Sri Lanka made 4 for 281, and Australia were embarrassingly rolled for 107. In both games, they didn't go anywhere near batting the 50 overs. Australia went from 3 for 79 to all out 107. So they lost 7 for 28. Jake Fraser McGurk made 9. Look, a lot of big dogs aren't in this team, and the one-day series, the one-day team is in a period of transition. Both teams are very different from the first ODI and the second ODI. So I don't read too much into it. I think there is an issue, though, with our top order where they seem to be playing it like a T20 game. There's no building the innings.
Exactly.
So, look, I didn't take too much from the series, but Australia were disappointing regardless.
Very similar story to the Pakistan series we had last year. If you remember, before the Border Gavaskar Trophy, lots of T20 batting in a one-day game, where one-day batting, there's still that element of that tempo that you need to have in setting up an innings and then going big at the end, because you can't play big shots every ball, and I feel as though that's what some of the guys are trying to do. And even though, we've had changed teams, there's a lot of guys that are coming in looking to make an impression. So there's a lot personally up for grabs for each of these players looking to play for Australia regularly. And I think there wasn't a big price paid for the wickets. It wasn't a big price put on the wickets for these players, which was disappointing. Jake Fraser McGurk is one in particular where he's struggling, in my opinion, to find the balance between 20-over cricket and 50-over cricket. Matt Short is another one. I like Matt Short, but just struggling to find that balance at the moment. And people might say, this is a nothing ODI series, and I get that, but it's for players who, want to play for Australia in the future, and what does our future one-day team look like? I think it's important in that sense that we need guys putting their hand up a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, it's hard to tell because they did change the 11s dramatically, but it's exactly what you said. If you go at 6 and over in a 50-over game, you will get 300. That is a very good score to defend in any conditions. And it's not that hard to go at 6 and over for these modern batters, but they don't seem to be content with that. They want to be going at 8, 10 and over. And whereas they need to pace themselves. And I think we'll see, Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne be the ones that set the pace in the Champions Trophy. But I'm just not sure Jake Fraser McGurk deserves all these opportunities he's getting at the top level.
I agree with that.
I think there's domestic players performing better at 50 over and 20 over level that should be given the opportunity. And I think of someone like Sam Constas. When he was in the Big Bash, he performed very well for the Thunder. He made 100 for New South Wales in the 50 over competition last week. If they're looking to the future to me, he seems like someone who should be given some opportunities. And, there's other batters around the country that have performed well in the 50 over competition that aren't really getting those chances. And,
Yeah, agree.
Jake Fraser McGurk has had a very poor year. He did well in the IPL, but since then the runs have really dried up. He scored 95, I think, in the last Big Bash game. That's been his only score for a long time.
Yeah,
and
agree.
I think he just needs a bit more time at franchise level and domestic level to develop his game, because I don't think he's got his game sorted out for international level yet.
I agree with you. I think he's picked on potential, and you can't just pick on potential. I think he needs to work on his tempo, needs to work on the mindset, but also work on a couple of things technically, because we saw it in the Pakistan series when he was nicking off. His footwork was a bit all over the place. He had a completely straight front leg when he's trying to get forward and drive the ball, and we're all taught you got to have that bent front leg head over the ball, and just nowhere near it. So, yeah, it needs more time. People calling him overrated and not good enough. I wouldn't say that. I think he's got a lot of ability, but he just needs to be nurtured, and he needs some time to figure out his game, as you said. He's 21 years of age. There's no rush. But for the meantime, we can get other guys playing in that role at the top. There's no necessity to play Jake Fraser McGurk right at this moment in time. We don't have to rush these guys in. It's important, to nurture them and get them right for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that leads on now to the Champions Trophy. So this series, while this series was being played, they announced the Champions Trophy squad.
Yeah.
And a lot of changes for the Australian side, because obviously Stark ruled out, Cummins ruled out, Hazelwood ruled out, Marsh ruled out, Stoinis retired. So from that initial squad, 5 players basically came out. And in came, the changes are Steve Smith was made skipper of the squad. So firstly, I'm very happy with this decision. We saw how good he was during the Sri Lankan Test series. I think maybe we're hitting a point in time where Smith should be doing more captaincy to allow Cummins not just to focus on his bowling, but to get some rest. I mean, he's been monumental for the last 3 or 4 years since taking over the captaincy, but I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think he can play all Test series. And so I love this, that they've gone for Steve Smith rather than maybe picking someone for the future. Maybe they would have gone for, say, a Travis Head or someone, who could be the next captain. But I think Smith's a good choice here.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and captaincy typically brings out the best in him, doesn't it? We saw that in the Test series, and we're going to need a big tournament from Smith if we're going to make a mark in this Champions Trophy. So, he's a good captain. He's a good leader, very good tactically. And, I look forward to seeing him go around in this Champions Trophy.
And so 5 changes for the Australian squad. So in came Sean Abbott, Ben Dwarshuis, Spencer Johnson, Tanveer Sangha, and Jake Fraser McGurk. So firstly, I guess with Sean Abbott, we've seen him perform really well in Australian colours before in the one-day team. He was part of the 2023 World Cup squad. He can slog the ball down the order. I like this selection. I think he's actually got the most economical spell in one-day cricket, where New Zealand couldn't get the bat on ball.
I remember that game. Yeah.
He conceded hardly any runs off his 10 overs. Like literally, I think it was a couple of runs. So I think that's a good pick. Ben Dwarshuis is a cricketer that, to me, has come on in leaps and bounds in the last few years. He had major back surgery 3 or 4 seasons ago, and he's been building up ever since then. And I think, he's a wicket taker. He's a good low order hitter, and he provides that left arm variety. Can swing the new ball. What do you think of Dwarshuis?
Yeah, I like Dwarshuis. And look, Abbott for me, he's got to find a way. Both these bowlers have got to find a way to how they're going to get wickets on those flat pitches in Pakistan. And that's why probably in place of one of them, I might have gone with Xavier Bartlett.
Interesting.
To swing the ball up top, because we're going to need wickets in the power play, because I worry about our bowling in the middle overs. I don't know if this attack's got a lot of strike in it. So I think we just needed something in that realm of that swing up top that hopefully Ben Dwarshuis can provide if he makes the 11. I think there'll probably be space for one of Abbott or Dwarshuis in the 11, looking at what it could look like. But we need to find those wickets up top. And Abbott is a hit the deck bowler. but will that work regularly on those pitches in Pakistan? It's going to be quite flat. So I'm fascinated to see if that selection works out.
Dwarshuis
For those conditions.
Dwarshuis can swing the ball.
Dwarshuis
He
can.
doesn't- Yeah.
Yeah.
And Abbott can a little bit. And then the other players come in, Spencer Johnson.
Yeah, I
Obviously,
like that. Yeah.
for like replacement for Mitchell Stark. And
Airspeed.
Yeah,
Swings the
airspeed.
ball. Important. Yeah.
Tanvir Sangha, interesting one. They've, I think, basically replaced, an all-rounder with Tanvir Sangha. So maybe they just looked at the squad and thought, maybe we need another spinning option.
Yeah.
Tanvir Sangha has been around that team for a very long time, a very good player. So be interesting to see if he gets a game, because obviously Adam Zampa will be the number one spinner. You would imagine Glenn Maxwell will be the number two spinner. So It would only be, I think, if there's an injury or conditions really become spin friendly, you actually see Tanvir. And then Jake Fraser McGurk, who we spoke about before. I'm not sure he deserves to be in Australia's Champions Trophy squad.
No.
But I guess
neither.
No, but I guess the benefit, two things. Firstly, through injuries, we're actually getting a good glimpse into the future.
100%.
The original squad was very much similar to the 2023 World Cup squad with, Warner's retired, and I think that was the only major change. But this is a pretty significant shift with those 5 changes. So we'll get to see what some of these guys are made of in an ICC event where it's must win.
Exactly. I think that's the big selling point for Australia fans is you see these new guys coming into the team and how can they perform under pressure. One guy I'm particularly keen to see is Nathan Ellis. I'm a big fan of his. And I think his death bowling is going to be bloody vital to our chances if we're going to progress in this tournament to the semi-finals. I'm skeptical about our chances. I'm not sure whether we'll qualify out of the groups. I predict that we will, but I'm not confident. Because of their bowling. We need to have a bit of strike in our bowling and restrict teams. Nathan Ellis and Adam Zampa are critical to that.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't mention Matthew Short, who's in the squad. I think it's a big series for him. Again, like Jake Fraser McGurk, he's been given a lot of opportunities, and he has shown some stuff. I think especially in that T20 series last year. I think that was against Pakistan. He scored some runs, and when we were overseas in England, he scored some runs, but apart from that, he hasn't really locked it down. So I think a big opportunity. And this also is really, I think, going to determine the way they start to shape the side heading into the 2027 50-over World Cup. I think if the players here don't grab the opportunity with both hands, they'll give other people a go. Maybe it's a Qantas, maybe it's some other domestic players that have performed well.
Exactly. So that was my point about those 2 ODIs in Sri Lanka. It's like you got these guys coming in, personally they want to perform because there are opportunities in ODI cricket the next 2 years. The lead up to that World Cup and then the actual World Cup itself, you want to be a part of it. So, when I see fans saying, oh, who cares? Well, yeah, I understand that. ODI cricket doesn't have the same sort of appeal that it did in the past. But for these players, it's a big opportunity for them. And who doesn't want to see Australia keep winning?
But the other thing is people complain about the meaningless nature of bilateral series. Well, the Champions Trophy, whilst it's not prestigious as the 50-over World Cup or the T20 World Cup or even the World Test Championship, it's still very prestigious. It's very lean. It's the top 8 teams playing, and so I think I enjoy that. I enjoy the Champions Trophy because it's very condensed. It's not like the 50-over World Cup that goes on for 6 weeks. This will be over in a couple of weeks. It'll be very condensed. We'll see, a lot of the best teams playing against each other. And it has meaning. There's a trophy on the line. So I like it.
Yep. Look, you're right. It's fourth on the list of, prestige when it comes to ICC trophies. But it's one you like to add to the cabinet. It is. And for Australia to be able to win that would be such a great sense of pride for the nation, to be able to hold pretty much all the bilateral trophies and all the ICC trophies bar the T20 World Cup. That would be something amazing.
It would.
So there's a great opportunity that awaits us here. There really is.
So Pakistan won the last Champions Trophy in England in 2017. I think they beat India in the final, didn't they?
They did. Yeah.
So
comfortably.
Great day
that
in
was
Pakistan there.
that was a big thumping, that one.
Yeah, and Australia last won the Champions Trophy in 2009, and I don't think they've won a game in the Champions Trophy since then. A lot of washouts and stuff, and it is very
The
condensed. You only
washouts have
get
hurt. Yeah.
yes, you only get 3 games a tournament, so it's not quite as bad as it sounds. I guess the big issue with this tournament is the dispute around India traveling to Pakistan to compete. They are not going to tour to Pakistan, so their games will be played in Dubai. The rest will be played in Pakistan. And I think you can safely assume, if India qualifies for the semi-finals and the final, those games will be played in Dubai as well.
Yes, that is actual fact. Yeah. So if India are playing in the final, the final will be in Dubai. Yeah. It's disappointing. I'd love to see them in Pakistan, but I understand in a sense. And you just can't have a tournament without India, can you? The ramifications would be far too great. That's just the reality of world cricket at this stage.
Exactly. It's unfortunate. So there are 2 groups of 4. They all play each other once. Then the top 2 teams from each group go through to the semi-finals. Australia have Afghanistan, England, and South Africa in their group. They play England on Saturday night, so can't wait for this weekend.
Yeah.
And that is the first game for Australia. I think from Australia's group, I think Australia will just get through. I'm not 100% confident, but I feel they'll be good enough to get through. I don't know if they'll be good enough to win the tournament,
I agree.
but I feel like they'll get through. And I actually feel like out of England, South Africa, and Afghanistan, I'm tipping South Africa to get through.
So am I. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you tipping Australia and South Africa as well?
I am more confident about South Africa. I think they've got pretty much all bases covered. It's about their mentality and whether they can cope under pressure. That's the big thing with South Africa. They've got a magnificent middle order in Klassen and Miller. And we spoke about the guys setting things up at the top. They've got that in Rassie van der Dussen and Temba Bavuma and these guys. So they've got the makings of a very good lineup. They've got good all-rounders, good spinners. Kagiso Rabada as a good fast bowler there. They probably will miss Anrik Nortje and Jared Kutsia. They're very good fast bowlers, both of them. They're both out injured. But I still think they've got enough depth and strike to pretty much knock any team on the canvas. So I think they'll make it. I think Australia and Afghanistan will compete for the third spot. For the second spot. I don't know about England. When we talk about tempo, they don't seem to have their mentality right. They don't seem to have their ODI game sorted. No. I think it'll be Australia and Afghanistan will compete for that second spot, in my view. If someone predicts Afghanistan to make it in over us, I can't argue with it because they've given us trouble in ICC tournaments in the last couple of years, and they've got the players to perform well in those conditions. So they can turn us over on the day, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. And you look at what happened to Australia when we played Sri Lanka in those spinning tracks against good spinners in 50-over cricket. We were made to look ordinary. So Afghanistan definitely have that ability. Yeah, that's who I was sort of toying with. But I'm just going to put a bit of faith in Australia. I know, listeners, it's unlike me, but I just feel that in tournament play will be good enough to get through to the semi-finals. And then in the other group, you've got Bangladesh, India, New Zealand, and Pakistan. So I'm tipping India and Pakistan to get through from this group. New Zealand's got a good side, but I just feel they're just coming off the boil a little bit with their 50-over cricket. And Bangladesh, I just don't see them being good enough to get through. Not much between these squads, but India are class. They are masters of the 50-over game. And I believe Pakistan at home will get the job done.
I've got New Zealand over Pakistan. I think New Zealand look very well-rounded. It showed in the recent tri-series. I know that, this is a different ball game, but I just think they've got more depth in their ranks. We're very good spinners. I think Pakistan lack a specialist fifth bowling option. If you look at the makeup of their 11, the makeup of their squad, they just lack that fifth bowling option. They probably lack the power that some of the other teams do. So that game tonight between New Zealand and Pakistan, I think could be absolutely critical to qualification. There's a case for both, but I think New Zealand just got that little bit of extra depth, that explosive power in the middle with like Glenn Phillips there. I think they'll get through with India. And you're right about Bangladesh; they just don't have the sort of power or that sort of form to get through above the other teams. 3 games, probably got to win 2 to get in. I don't see them winning 2. Yeah.
Neither do I. And look, you said it. So Pakistan play New Zealand tonight. The tournament gets underway with that. And that's what is so great about the Champions Trophy. Every match means something. You play 3 matches. You really don't want to lose any of those group stages because then you could be in a net run rate battle. So Pakistan play New Zealand tonight, Wednesday night. Thursday night, Bangladesh play India. Then Friday night, Afghanistan play South Africa. Really interesting game there. We'll get, I think, a bit of a gauge of where Afghanistan is with their team. And then Saturday night, Australia, England. And then in just farcical scenes, on Sunday, India play Pakistan in Dubai. Pakistan hosting the tournament, are leaving their country to play India in Dubai. I mean, that is going to be a huge game. But can you imagine how huge it would have been if it was being played in Pakistan, despite the fact you would have probably had, 5,000 troops guarding the stadium.
Can you imagine the security? It would have been amazing. And I understand that's just the nature of world cricket. Yeah, it would have been great to see it in Pakistan. Would have been fantastic.
Yeah. So Champions Trophy underway tonight. Make sure I think it's on Amazon Prime. So if you have a Prime subscription, you'll be able to watch all the games. I have been having a shocker. During the Sri Lankan series, I kept putting on KO, and I'm like, oh no, this is the reruns of the Indian series. Oh, that's right. It's on 7+ only.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people will make that mistake tonight and throughout the tournament.
Yeah, they'll be like, it's not on KO. Oh, it's not on 7. Like, where is it?
I know. It's disappointing. I hate that, but it is what it is.
It is a huge platform and it does have a lot of subscribers, but I still think cricket fans are being educated on it. Even recently, Prime had the Under-19 Women's World Cup on, and I just forgot it was there sometimes and didn't put it on. And you're probably like me, Sharbel. If there's any cricket on, you'll put it on the TV in the background while you're working or doing something.
Yeah, definitely. On the iPad, for sure. Yeah. So, look, if you don't have a Prime account, you can actually have a 30-day free trial as well. That will take you through to the Champions Trophy final comfortably. So that's another option if you don't have Prime.
It's good hack there. All right, we're going to take a quick break, then we'll be back to talk about some domestic cricket. Welcome back to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I am Menas. I'm with Sharbel from Cricket Blog. We've just previewed the Champions Trophy. Now it's on to domestic cricket. As we're recording this, there is a Shield round underway. So let's not really talk about the Shield too much because the results could dramatically change by the time you're listening to this. But we're recording this, sort of halfway through day 2 of the Shield matches, and already 1,000 wickets have fallen across 3 fixtures.
Chaos.
So it is a good week to be a bowler. In one game on day 1, I think that was South Australia and Tasmania, 20 wickets fell at the Adelaide Oval. So, you want to be a bowler. Corey Rockacholi took 7 for 52 against Queensland.
Big fan of his. Yeah.
And so is Nathan Lyon. So you're in good company. But let's look at the domestic one-day competition. The big news from my point of view was Sam Constas made his maiden 50-over domestic century against Queensland last week, 116 of 98 deliveries. It was in a loss, but he was the one shining light for New South Wales in that game. And I actually think he's a very good white ball cricketer.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bad things, which I'll talk about a bit later, it's seeped into his red ball cricket. But in terms of white ball, he made a big statement in the Big Bash. You remember that tour game against India where it turned into a one-day game in Canberra? He was excellent there as well. He's got all the shots. I think his game is very suited to white ball cricket and he has a future there. So you're right about, getting Constas into the one-day squad for the Champions Trophy ahead of JFM because I think Constas has showed a little bit more. But I think it's not too long before we see Constas in Australian colours in white ball cricket. Fantastic to see him perform well in this format. And New South Wales probably need him to perform well in that last game against Victoria, crunch game.
Yes,
he qualifies through to the final.
So there's one round left in the 50 over competition. South Australia are on top. They have a 5-point lead. So odds are they should actually host the final because you only get 4 points for a win in this competition, but there is the ability to get a bonus point. So if New South Wales were to win with a bonus point and South Australia got no points in their last game, then New South Wales could actually host the final. But basically the top 4 teams are all in it. South Australia, New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria all have a chance of playing in the final. Actually, I think South Australia's locked in for the final already. But then
they're 6 points clear of third.
So they're locked in. It's whether they host or not. It's Tasmania mathematically have a chance in 5th, but they would need a miracle. Like a bonus point win and a big run rate improvement to leapfrog into 2nd. But
they'll need WA to beat Queensland as well for that.
Exactly. And WA are cellar dwellers out of it already. So but I think they're defending champs.
They've won 3 in a row, I think, from memory. So I think they've just had their off year this year across formats. They've been up top for so long. They were bound to have a year where it just hasn't gone quite right for them, and this has been the year.
Yeah, but South Australia's a great story. They've been
it is, mate.
I mean, they're doing well in all competitions, but they've been struggling for so long. Jason Gillespie laid a lot of the groundwork for this. I think it's easy to forget the good work he did in rebuilding this South Australian culture and team. And Ryan Harris has come in this season as full-time coach and done a wonderful job. But I think, the groundwork has been laid and they've signed well. Nathan McAndrew has been a brilliant import from New South Wales. Good to see them at the top of the ladder. And, they love in South Australia, they love their cricket team.
Oh, they do, mate. And they love their South Australian players when they're playing in the national team. You see how they treat Travis Head and all that. They love it. And I'm really happy for them. You're right. They've had a tough few years, but McAndrew, I can't believe the impact he's had since he's gone to South Australia from New South Wales. It's been incredible across formats. He's just elevated them to another level, along with other players, of course, but he's been outstanding. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, when you think of someone like Nathan Ellis as well, who's left New South Wales and now part of the Australian side and captained the Hurricanes winning team. I mean, people say when New South Wales cricket is strong, Australian cricket is strong, and I think we're seeing that play out. So on Sunday, last 3 fixtures of the competition, actually a great sort of couple of weeks for 50 over cricket. Champions Trophy going on this Sunday. New South Wales play Victoria. South Australia play Tasmania. Queensland play WA. So then the domestic one-day competition will play the final after that. Now, a couple of things I wanted to touch on before we wrap this up. So for the first time in a long time, one-day internationals were on primetime free-to-air television in Australia. So for those not aware, when Fox Sports took over the cricket in 2017-18, the one-day games and the T20 internationals all moved behind a paywall. But Channel 7, covering this tour to Sri Lanka, also bought the one-day games. And just to show actually how much they're into cricket now, they actually also bought the Masters League, which has got Brian Lara and AB de Villiers, which will be on, I think, in the next few weeks. So they're going all in on cricket and all in on 7+. But what struck me was the strength of the ratings of the cricket. So on Friday night, the second game, the second one-day international was the 3rd highest rated program across all free-to-air television that night. So had 1.5 million people watching. 7 News was number 1, 9 News was number 2, and then the cricket was in 3rd. But then also in the prime advertising demographics, you had the cricket number 1. So in people 16 to 39, cricket was number 1. And in people 25 to 54, cricket was number 1. So this proves 2 things to me, Charbel. People still want to watch 50 over cricket. It is actually a great TV spectacle still because it's a bit more juicy than a 20 over game. And, it sort of starts in the afternoon. You can really watch it all day. But also
you have it on in the background. Yeah,
exactly. And then you can dip in and out. But those figures are stunning. And what it further underlines to me how bad it is that the the internationals played in Australia are behind a paywall, because it means now effectively, unless you go search it out as a regular sports fan, you are never going to see our white ball teams play. Right now, case in point. So the domestic internationals are behind a paywall. This Champions Trophy is behind Amazon Prime. There will be casual sport fans who would love to watch a 50-over game, but they might not see any, ever.
They might not know what's on. The amount of people I see on social media, the amount of friends I have, cousins even, who love their cricket, they say, oh, I didn't even know this was on. I didn't know this was starting. So just the lack of promotion, the lack of marketing, and just happy to take the money from the from Fox in terms of the broadcast deal. That's our job done. I hated it back in 2017. I thought you're not engaging with your audience as best as you can, and that remains the case, and the figures show it. I was stunned at the numbers from the ratings and what Channel 7 achieved in terms of even in the test matches, great numbers. People love their cricket here, and people say, oh, cricket's dying in Australia, it's not the same. I've disagreed for years. We love our cricket here, but it's just not as accessible to people as it once was, and we need to get back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the ratings underline it, and have to say, bad job by Cricket Australia to put it behind a paywall. Bad job.
Just blinded by those dollars of the broadcast deal, where you could still get a very good deal and have your cricket accessible to more people, and that's better for the long-term growth of the game in this country.
Yeah,
can't only think short-term. I think you've got to also have that long-term view.
Yeah, it also does show that when the next TV deal is done, Cricket Australia can show that people want to watch it. Like these results show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a hard sell. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Let's wrap this up, Shaba, with Can't Let It Go. That little bit of cricket news you just can't let go through to the keeper. I'll let the guest go first. What is yours?
All right. I've seen in your notes here that you've got the 2-tier system in Test cricket. That's something I can't let go. So my pinned tweet is actually an article I've written about the damage that a 2-tier system can do to Test cricket, particularly if there's no promotion and relegation. I just think you'll have very little motivation from those nations like West Indies, Bangladesh, even South Africa for that matter, who don't get to play the top teams very often, even less often than they do now. What's going to motivate them and inspire them to build another generation of Test cricketers and keep that format alive in those countries? When Australia play England, it's great. When we play India, it's great. But do I want to see it more often than we do now? I think it'll get a bit boring in the future. I think it'll really become overkill, and we need to find ways to, keep Test cricket the champion format of the game around the world, not just in 3 countries. Because if the same 3 countries are playing each other all the time, really diminishes the value of it. So that's something I can't let go. It's been on my mind for a little while, and it wrote a piece about it as well, that what's going to stop a young kid in those countries taking up T20 cricket when that's where the opportunity is? How are you going to encourage them to play tests? If there's no promotion, then there's no money for them. Forget it. It'll die.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw that with this tour to Sri Lanka, how, cricket benefits and spectators benefit from the variety and the richness of playing all nations. Yeah. I don't mind a 2-tier system if there is promotion and relegation and everybody is able to be promoted and relegated. So you can't have a system where, we'll do it, but, if India can't ever go into the 2nd tier. Yeah. And that's the problem. I don't think they'd agree to it if there is promotion and relegation.
Same with Australia and England. Can you imagine one of those 3 countries getting relegated? They would not be happy with it.
No.
And nor would the broadcasters, right? And that'll affect things a lot. Yeah.
And
I like the World Test Championship, I will say. I like the World Test Championship. That just needs to be tweaked. So there's a more equal, spread of games for different teams. You've got England playing 24 times or whatever, and South Africa playing half those games. Just have a more equal spread, and you can have. It's a really good idea. It just needs to be tweaked a little bit.
Well, what I hate is the hypocrisy of India and England, especially, complaining about it now.
Agree.
Whereas basically, it's the big 3 who have decided not to play these nations as much. They've taken away so many opportunities from these nations with not just not playing them in long test series, but also the growth of all the T20 franchises like the 100 and the Big Bash and the IPL, which is taking time out of the calendar. So as a result of that, the lesser nations can't play as much. So they have to use this World Test Championship where it's percentage of wins rather than an equal number of games. So
Agree.
they've made this situation, and now
That's
they're
exactly my
complaining
view.
about it,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
gonna stuff over the smaller nations. So
Yeah, you've
yeah.
made the bed and then you're complaining about it. 100% right. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you get a situation where South Africa, because Test cricket isn't as profitable for them because they don't play the top teams as often, they're putting, more of their focus in their T20 competition, the SA20. Next summer, I read that there's not going to be any Test cricket in South Africa in their summer. That's extremely sad because Test cricket there is like a staple as part of the summer on Boxing Day and in the new year. So I think there has to be more thinking around how we keep Test cricket alive in those other countries.
Yeah, absolutely. And the 2-tier system with promotion relegation might do that because it would give the people lower down the ladder something to work for. But as I said, I just don't think England or India will go for it. And maybe even Australia wouldn't want to be in a situation where they're relegated. All right, my can't let it go is the Women's Premier League is back. And Ash Gardner has started with 250s, and she's also the second leading wicket taker. That might have changed actually because I did that last night. But basically, Aussies are doing really well in the WPL to start. Competition looks fantastic. And Ash Gardner, who had a really rough year, sort of dating back to last year's WPL, and even in the Australian side before this summer, there were whispers about whether she was ever going to score some runs again. Well, she has silenced all the critics. I mean, she had a phenomenal summer for Australia. She started the WPL and she is back. And I think she's an interesting case study of a female player that was awarded this massive contract to play in the WPL. I think it was over $500,000 to play the first season. All of a sudden, that's a pressure she would never have felt before.
Exactly.
A gun for hire being played, exorbitant fees, $500,000 for a month's work. And yet she didn't quite perform. But I think she's come through that now and just showing what a champion she is. And she dominated the Ashes as well.
Yeah. 100%. I'm thrilled for her. She got her first ODI ton in that Ashes series and outstanding with bat and ball. She gets into the teams either as a batter or as a bowler. That's how good her all-round skills are. And, she's topping the charts in the WPL. Thrilled for her. She's taken 4 wickets in a couple of games there as well. So she's worth the money. You spend big on those all-rounders in these T20 comps because they give you so much value. It's like having 2 players in your 11 when they give you that much value.
All right, and I'm going to just throw in an extra, can't let it go. I'm going to steal Charbles, but I want to bring it up. In the Sheffield Shield on the first day, New South Wales v Victoria, Sam Constas was facing Scott Boland, and he went into the laps and the ramp shots, and he was out for 10 in the third over trying a lap shot. He went across to the off stump, and he lapped it onto his stumps, cannon into his stumps. My take on this is, Charble, this is a bit of a hangover because Boland kind of terrorized Constas in the first Shield game played down in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I think Constas took the approach that he took with Bumrah. I'm going to hit Boland off his line by doing some funky shots. And it's actually what the English did to Boland in the Ashes in 2023. They decided to really try and put Boland off his line, charge him, bat out of their crease. I don't mind it from Constas, but I also want to see the other way of approaching it, which is I'm just going to get through this spell. I'm just going to get through Boland.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing, right? If you come up against a quality bowler and you don't trust your technique or your game to be able to deal with them, and you're always going to turn into, ramps and reverse ramps, and because that's the way you think you're going to survive. It's an approach fraught with risk, and it's not going to work all too often, particularly on a pitch that's got a bit in it against quality bowling. The first morning of a Shield game, I think Constas has to figure out the player he wants to be. Does he want to be that sort of player that put him on the scene at the start of the season with those twin tons against South Australia, or does he want to be a dasher who is going to make his fame and have his success in white ball cricket? Because I think he's got game, and I think he's got the potential to be our next Test opener for well over a decade. But I think you just need some sound advice here to say that, yes, you can look to play an attacking approach, but 3 ramp shots in the first 7 deliveries of a Sheffield Shield game, another delivery he charged down the pitch and hit one down the ground for 4. So basically, you're going after every single delivery at the start of a Sheffield Shield game, a red ball game. It's not going to give you long-term success. That's my view.
No, I agree. And look, there is a school of thought that, especially as you get up against the really good bowlers like a Scott Boland, who, if you just let him bowl, he will bowl every ball in a shoebox just outside off stump. So you got to be positive and bat with intent and look to put some pressure on Boland. But I think Constance has just got the balance wrong. We saw it a little bit against India. He just needs to tone it down a little bit. Like, one ramp shot is fine, because then you put that little seed of doubt in Boland's mind. Oh shit, he might ramp me, or maybe I need to change my line. But if you're doing it, as you say, 3 out of 7 balls, a bowler like Boland will just know, well, I'm going to get him out. If he keeps playing this, I'm going to get him out.
I think pretty much every opening bowler would love to see an opening batsman playing ramps and reverse ramps. It's just opportunity for wickets, and you say, keep trying, I'm going to get you eventually, especially if you're hitting the top of the stumps. It's a hard shot to play on that length, right? And yeah, there's a difference between positivity, as you've said, and recklessness. It's sheer recklessness. It really is. We need this guy, understanding the ability that he has. And I think he's got to get that sound advice from the people around him.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. Remember, rate and review the show on your favorite app. Don't forget to follow us on socials. We're also on TikTok, and you can also get an ad-free version on Patreon. If you prefer video options, we are on YouTube as well. And also email me your cricket takes. I do have a few takes I've got to get to. I'm going to do a solo Mad Manners soon and address some of them. Shava, where can the listeners catch up with all your work? You said you wrote an article about 2-tier Test cricket.
Yep. You can catch me on @crick_blog on Twitter. So you can see me there. Crickblog.net is the website, and also Crickblog podcast. We were also on YouTube as well, and Spotify and Apple, etc. So you can catch me there.
Another great cricket podcast. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I don't think I'm going to be doing wraps after every Australian Champions Trophy game. Might be a little bit too brutal with the time differences, but I will be coming to you next week for a full episode, and we'll obviously review the Champions Trophy then. Thanks everybody, and we'll be back soon.